All right, welcome back, everyone. Our next presentation will be with Sarah Drerup from the University of Kentucky on designing in-class infographics work to reduce AI reliance. Thanks so much, Sarah.
Thank you, Tessa. Appreciate it. Good morning. My name is Sarah Drerup, and I'm a STEM librarian at the University of Kentucky. And as Tessa said, my session's on designing in-class infographics work to reduce AI reliance. So I received a request in spring semester, kind of a couple weeks in. Unfortunately, at the College of Agriculture, Food, and the Environment, we had a faculty member who passed away. Two other faculty members took over the execution of that class, and one of those faculty members reached out and said, going through the syllabus right now, it looks like in a week there is a library assignment, and I didn't see that you had been put on the schedule to come in and do instruction. And I don't know if you're available. If you're not available, could you just put together a video maybe, or if you have a worksheet that you could provide? I checked my availability. I was able to do the class. And I looked at the syllabus and at the assignment, and it was actually an infographic library assignment. Not really any talk about doing research in databases. I was a little confused on the labeling of it as a library assignment, but decided that it was still a good reason for me to be in the class regardless. So I had 1 week to plan. And then I also asked because the final assignment was to create an infographic on plant propagation. And so I asked if what the AI policy was for the course. There wasn't an AI policy. They were working currently to put together an AI policy, but it probably wouldn't be in place, or it would have just been given to the students when I did the course. So one of the things, and the faculty member agreed, the concern was that AI tools now, you can create an infographic in seconds. Feed it a research paper and it's going to develop a beautiful infographic for you. So I wanted to target reduction of on AI usage and do some in-class work with those students. So I talked about researching in databases, how we're finding primary sources, and then I also talked about infographics. I showed them two different infographics and asked them, what is this infographic telling us? Who is this infographic for? So the one on the left is something that's been produced by NOAA. They talked about the information on that infographic, that it was at a very basic and approachable level, and that it's probably for the general public because it talks about ways that you can help to reduce pollution. On the right is an infographic from a journal article, and they talked about the level of the language, a little more advanced, and who that target audience would be, and it's probably other researchers. So we spent a moment, we broke down infographics and their use, and then I had found an article to use for in-class work. So the article is titled Comparing the Effects of Four Propagation Methods on Hybrid Chestnut Seed Quality. The article itself used four different propagation methods. They used air pruning, bed grown, container grown, and multi-container method, four different methods. And then they collected different data. They looked at the height, the mortality, the cost per seedling, and the root architecture. Knowing that this was the prompt that the students were given for their in-class assignment. So they had to review the article and they had to, in teams, develop an infographic on just one of the propagation methods using post-it notes. After they completed their infographic, they had to do a short, very informal 2-minute presentation about their infographic. In that presentation, I wanted them to talk about why they chose their specific propagation method, really thinking about who the audience was, the steps of that propagation method, and then some of the key findings. The result was they worked really well together in small groups. I was so interested in the way that they use the markers and the post-it notes. Some students opted to, have each step of the propagation method on a different sticky note. Some combined all of their sticky notes. They were given 6 sticky notes total. Some combined all of their sticky notes to draw one large graphic. But ultimately, they all were able to translate those findings into very clear, concise statements that they used either on their infographic or when they were explaining their infographic. I will say, when it came time to give the 2-minute presentations, there was a lot of hesitation, and students were very timid to do so. I did talk to the faculty member afterwards and, asked, in looking at the assignment, were there things that she felt were more worthwhile than others, things to be cut out? I told her, I was like, just being honest between us, I was like, they did not like to give the presentation. And, her feedback was they didn't. It was uncomfortable for them, but there's no other presentation piece to this class. And so I actually think that next time they're going to incorporate a presentation piece because they were so uncomfortable with it. They want them to be more comfortable talking about scientific findings or, talking about their research. So although uncomfortable for them in the moment, something that probably will be helpful to them, being able to distill this very lengthy research paper into a short infographic and then be able to talk to that infographic for just 2 minutes. So some of the benefits, I do believe that there was enhanced comprehension. And enhanced comprehension, students really, they were able to identify each stage in the methodology for the plant propagation, and then talking about doing some more analysis and thinking through who their target audience is, which made them present their infographic in different ways. So there were some that presented and said that they were just targeting like a home grower who wants to grow chestnut trees in their backyard, but they're looking at the cost effectiveness. So they really focused on the cost per seedling, and for their infographic, it was in very basic terminology. There were others that said that they were more focused on the research community and thinking about it being something that they want to publish in a research journal, meaning that their terminology was very more or was more advanced, and they also, on their infographic, the labeling was extremely detailed, and they were very specific in the step-by-step, giving very detailed instructions on that plant propagation method. And they more looked at the root composition as far as what they were focusing on, because that kind of gave some information into the quality of the seedling. Collaborative synthesis, I personally always like it if I have the opportunity to have students work together. I think it just builds a better team within that class. And then the reduced AI dependence. They still have the final assignment where they are turning in an infographic on a different plant propagation method. Whether or not they use AI for that was, out of my hands, but at least they went through the steps of developing it in person, in class, analog. So I felt really good about that. As far as being able to adapt this exercise, so the exercise itself, you could use it in honestly any field. Really, for me, what I was looking for in a research article was if the methodology, they use different methods to find different pieces of data, information. But I think that would work across any discipline, so very easily to adapt outside of the plant propagation realm. As far as it being scalable, and the group options, this could be done on an individual level if you're working with a smaller class of just 4 or 5 students. But it could also be a larger group. If you were working in a class with 40 students, you could break those groups up into, 4 or 5. And you could also, depending upon how the time allowed. So for me, I was so thankful I was given 2 hours with these students. So I was able to spend, 30 minutes talking about building a search strategy, navigating databases. We probably spent 5 to 10 minutes on what is an infographic, showing them examples of infographics and talking about target audience and things like that. Initially, I'd only given them 20 minutes to review the research article and produce the infographic, and that was not enough time for them. They ended up taking about 45 minutes, which again, I was given the luxury of having them for 2 full hours. It meant we were moving through the 2 minute presentations pretty quickly, but the presentation time could be decreased or increased, and the amount of time that they're given to review the article and produce the infographic could also fluctuate, depending upon the level of detail that you're looking for. And for online learning, this could also be adapted to online learning. I really enjoy doing this in person with students, but if I were doing an online class, Zoom does have the capability of allowing you to do breakout rooms. And so you could have students in different breakout rooms. They can use the digital whiteboard feature, and together they can create infographic. Um, I have not tried that, so I'm just saying that is a recommendation. That could be a mess and way too complicated, but I could see how you could adapt that to online learning. End results, the faculty member that had asked me to come and do instruction in their class were very happy with the level of engagement experienced by students. In that class, there is a lot of instruction and there is a lot of field work, lab learning, but not a lot of collaboration. They don't do any partner work or group work in that class. And so being able to go in and just have them work a little differently than they're used to. Additionally, in this class, I had students that I had seen previously in the fall semester and even in the spring semester. And so one of the students in particular, this was my third time seeing them in a course. And so they were able to, when they walked in, I said to them, I know I'm seeing you again. Today is going to be totally different than the other instruction that you received. The first couple of minutes, developing a search strategy, navigating databases, they had experienced that before. But in regards to the majority of the class, the in-class exercise, it was completely different from them. And so at the end, I asked them, I said, did you learn something different? And they agreed that they had, and that it was a very different experience in other classes. So this also is just a reminder to me if I think that there could be an instance where I'm seeing students in multiple classes really doing something different in each class, focusing on different aspects of the research lifecycle and the products that are produced. This was just a good reminder and a different way of doing instruction than I'm used to. This was my first time ever trying an exercise like this in class, and I was very happy with the results. Okay. That is everything. I can leave it up on the questions, and I'll bring back up the chat so I can see if anybody's got any questions for me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. This is another really innovative instructional approach. I like what you said about kind of mixing it up for students and having them try different things. This was just more of a small comment, but I'm also a STEM librarian, and I think we're seeing more and more visual abstracts. Do you think there could be a way to maybe talk about how infographics might be used in kind of more advanced research, or like what skill are they how can they translate the skill of creating an infographic into either like more research or more like other areas?
Yeah, and honestly, you saying that this particular, I tried to stay true to the assignment, which was an infographic, but I do think that's is an excellent recommendation that I could even reach back out to that faculty and say infographics are great and wonderful. We're using them, in research articles, but I love the idea of them actually creating like a visual abstract or something like that. Just making it a little more advanced for them because I felt like this class could use a more advanced assignment. So I absolutely agree. I think that, and this can easily be tailored to that. I think if I were doing that, I probably would choose a plant propagation article that only had one methodology associated with it. But I absolutely think that that's a great idea.
Yeah, for sure. I was also curious a little bit too, if you wanted to comment a little bit more about what you're seeing in terms of AI dependence in the students that you work with, and maybe talking a little bit more around, like, do you think students were still using AI to complete this assignment, or because it was mostly in class, do you think that was kind of shaping what they were doing?
Yeah. So I reached back out to the faculty. So I initially reached back out to the faculty member because she collected all of the sticky notes at the end, and I wanted to I should have taken a photo of them in class, but I didn't. And I reached back out to say, hey, would you be able to snap a photo of those? I'm going to be doing a short presentation on this. She couldn't find them. But when I reached back out to her, she did say that she felt like only a couple of students, which this class was about 10 students. And she used the terminology a couple, so I'm not sure if that's two, if that's four. But she said that she thought a couple of students did use AI, but because the AI policy wasn't in place when that assignment was due, she didn't give them a lower grade on that. But she did also feel like a majority of students, so she used a couple and then a majority of students she felt actually developed that product on their own. So I don't have hard data and she wasn't specific in her actual numbers. But a majority is a win, in my opinion. So
Yeah, for sure. I'll leave it open. Are there any other questions or comments for Sarah? One question, sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions today, but I'm having a lot of thoughts. And I apologize if you said this already, but were you
yeah.
recommending that they use a particular tool to create their infographic, or do you think there were challenges in identifying the creation tool and how to use them?
I did not recommend a tool that they use. That's a great comment, though. I probably should have spent 2 to 3 minutes if they had no idea where to even start with creating an infographic, what tools they have available to them through the University of Kentucky that could facilitate that, whether it be, a PowerPoint or some other online tools that they have access to. But I did not, but I do think that's a good recommendation for the future. If I'm gonna not want them to use AI, then I should recommend some tools that are not AI that they use. So very
Yeah.
valid.
And maybe this is just like students just know how to do these, maybe that's true, but
Yeah.
great. Well, we'll pause again for questions, but please give Sarah a round of applause with our reacts and our comments in the chat. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you all.